here I am in jail in San Diego and just kind of not knowing even what I'm there for. When you don't know what's going on, why, how long you're going to be there, it was like one of the darkest moments that I've ever gone through. And I can tell you, man, like I came out of there with a vengeance. And I remember I heard a quote, and it was a quote from Frank Sinatra. And it says, "The best revenge is massive success."
Jesse runs a multi-seven-figure flipping and wholesale business, does tons of flips in one of the toughest markets in the country down in San Diego.
I went from $0 to $15 million net worth within those 5 years because I pushed myself to that limit.
Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. I'm your host, John Lallande, a seasoned real estate investment expert and former Marine recon sniper. This podcast is designed for those seeking effective strategies to increase revenue growth through strategic hiring, leadership, and effective tracking. Our focus here is clear and direct. We provide actionable insights from successful founders and growth experts. Whether you're establishing a new business or aiming to scale an existing one, our episodes offer the essential advice you need for practical business growth. Lock and load, zero in, and get ready to scale. Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. Man, today I'm extremely excited. I've been begging him to come on, but he's super busy and he doesn't like me that much. So Jesse Trujillo, everybody. So normally in this podcast, what we talk about getting in the nitty gritty of business. And we're going to do that. We're going to get into Jesse runs a multi-seven-figure flipping and wholesale business, does tons of flips in one of the toughest markets in the country down in San Diego. And he's also nationwide now. But what we're going to talk about more importantly today, Jesse has one of the craziest stories you've ever heard. So I've known Jesse for a while, maybe like 3 or 4 years now. And I didn't know his story until about 2 years ago. So we were at a mastermind event together where he spoke. And, you know, I always thought, I think I told Jesse, I was like, I would never tell Jesse about any of my problems because he seems like one of those guys that went to a private school growing up and then, you know, got a nice degree and maybe was a doctor for a while. I think that's what I thought he was. I thought he was a doctor and then he made a bunch of money and started flipping houses. So if you meet Jesse, you think he has an easy life because he's so nice and easygoing and you think that everything was just handed to him. But what we're going to learn about in today's podcast is what it really means to have grit. And if you don't know Jesse, wait till the end and you will meet one of the most unstoppable people you've ever heard in your life after hearing this story. So Jesse, thanks for coming on, man. I know this story, man, a lot of people are going to learn a lot from it and I love that you're sharing it. So thanks for coming on.
No, thank you, John, for having me on, buddy. And I do like you, buddy. So just remember that I do actually like you. Well, you know.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. And it's because I have a half brown son. So that's the main reason, right? Yeah, exactly. So Jesse, walk us through, man. So I want to make sure that we get this story perfect. Walk us through from when you started wholesaling and started flipping. I think, how did you get into it? And then just tell us kind of what got you here now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, and I'll start sharing just a couple things, right? You know, I decided to share my story because I figured if I can help out even one person listen to this podcast, you know, it's a win for me. You know, sharing perseverance and never giving up is so huge. And I've decided to share my story because of that, John. So thank you for letting me, you know, helping me put it out there and potentially help some people. You know, a little bit about me. Obviously, you know, John mentioned I live in San Diego. We bought about 1,000 properties since 2010. You know, mainly some of those were flips, and then we have some single family rentals and then apartments as well. We currently have about 760 rental units that we own and manage, worth about $100 million in market value of assets under management. And we're still going, and we're still flipping, we're wholesaling, we're buying apartments. And we just started a $25 million debt fund that we're launching here soon. So where did I start? Kind of started by accident. My sister was graduating from San Diego State, and she came home one day and said, Jesse, hey, I'm going to go get an apartment. I'm graduating, moving out. And I said, oh, you should buy, don't rent. And she looked at me like, yeah, right. I racked up my credit cards at San Diego State, you know, and I said, well, what if I could learn how to fix your credit? She's like, oh, go for it. So quickly studied how to fixed her credit, found a lender. They kind of took me under their wing, made me understand what it was to get a loan. We got her a 3-bedroom condo down the street from my parents that I calculated she could rent out 2 of the rooms to community college students down the street. So she'd only be paying like a couple $100, you know, to live there. And anyways, we ended up closing. And man, I was more excited than her. Like, it was like if I had bought it, you know, and it was just, it really, by then I was at UCSD I was an undergrad, pre-med. My goal was to be a doctor, and I was studying there. And I was like, man, that became a hobby. So I ended up, working with my sister and ended up buying her like a couple properties every couple months. And she ended up getting to a big portfolio of like, I mean, talking like 8 to 10 rentals, right? But it was good old Mr. Brother here that became her property manager. And I wasn't complaining, but I was like, man, I was going to school, I was studying, it was too much. And I just said, hey, it's too much, you get a property manager or sell them. And she looked at me like, man, Jesse, sell them. And so we started selling them, and of course the values had gone up, and I started seeing the amount of money she was making. I was like, wow, that's a business there, And so little did I know that was flipping to a certain degree. Yeah. And so then I ended up doing my first one. It was a little 40,000 studio by the border in San Isidro, and I was there painting at night, with my chemistry book in one hand and shocking myself, changing the plugs. And I made like $5,000 on that flip, and it was, but for me, it was like the best ever. Starving student, it was amazing. And then from there, it just kept growing. What happened there is I ended up leaving UCSD, and I was working at a perinatal research laboratory with some doctors, and they, in different ways, told me, man, Jesse, if I could do what you're doing, I'd rather do that. And I was like, wow, that was huge. I'm looking up to them, and they're saying they'd rather do what I'm doing. And they just said the bureaucracies, the insurance, and everything, it's not the same anymore. So I went for it. Left in 2006, went all in, and the market crashed, right? As we all know. I lost everything, living in my father-in-law's garage with my newborn daughter, and making a decision, do I go back to being, going to study, finish being a doctor, or go to real estate? I'd see my wife, we talked about it, and she says, Jesse, do what you love. And I was like, all right. And I went back to real estate, and I went for it, and fumbled, tried things here or there. And then in 2009, got one property. It was going to be a $60,000 estimated flip, and begged and looked and for investors and didn't give up, and finally found someone that gave me a shot, and ended up flipping it and used that money. We did 20 flips in 2010, and then just kept growing.
Man,
from there.
Can we pause there for a second? So
Yeah.
You had a newborn daughter. And you didn't really have, at this point, you didn't have a huge track record of success in real estate. It wasn't like you were, like you are now, or even the second time, right? It wasn't like any of that. It was like,
not at all.
I could either go and I could get a job where I know I could make $250,000 a year. Now, when you were thinking about this, did you see other people making like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year? Did you know that was possible, or were you just like, I'm betting on myself? How did you make that decision?
Honestly, I didn't know. I wasn't really in like masterminds, or I wasn't in groups, and so I didn't really know what the potential was, of it. So it was just really for me that did I enjoy it? It's sometimes about life yourself, right? What makes you happy? So for me, I went for it. I knew what I could do. Like I knew what I could make myself, and that's all I knew, that I could do it because I had done it. It just sadly the market crashed, right? So could I restart over and do it again? And I think knowing that was my push to just not to say, not go W-2 route and go all in.
So can we slow down a second and walk through, how many flips did you do in 2010?
20.
So you did 20 flips. Well, so you did about two flips a month, right? Which is maybe sounds easy for you now, where you're doing, over 100, but did you just do it by yourself? Did you scale a team? How did you go about doing that?
That one I can't say it was 100% by myself. My dad helped me a little bit back then. He's retired, so he kind of helped me with some stuff, but it was all me. I did every single job, from acquisitions to, project manager, everything you can imagine, that was all me. And I look back and I'm glad I did, because I understand those roles. And, not until way more in the future did I delegate, but I got to understand what each role meant. So that was kind of a learning lesson. Would I do that again? I don't think so. It's if not, if you want to scale faster, right? It's putting the right people in the right seats.
But you swung a hammer, right? Like you were hammering nails, you were painting walls, you were putting up drywall, you were doing all of that. Like you
Correct.
were in there.
I was hiring still, like crews and stuff, but I was in there helping out wherever I could to save time and money.
Yeah, so how important do you think that is for you now? Because there's a lot of people, especially in our community, right? And the community, the masterminding community. that are always talking about like, just get out of your business as fast as you can. Don't do anything, But I mean, do you think that it helped you, or do you think that it hurt you that you wore every single hat? You knew how to talk to contractors because you were in there in the house. You knew how to do acquisitions. You knew how to hire because you've done it. You know what to look for. Looking back, I mean, do you think that helped you in the long run, or do you think that was irrelevant?
I feel it helped me. I can look back and be like, I think that's what helped me grow. Would I do it differently? Yes. Meaning, would I probably be hiring people right from the get-go? Yes. And be involved there, like on site and checking everything? Yes. Maybe not doing the actual work, right? But having the pros do it, someone that knows how to put up drywall way faster than I would, someone that knows how to, change the plugs way faster than I could without getting shocked, So yes, but being there and learning, I think that's where I would have done it a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And so you did 20, I didn't even know that was possible. You did 20 flips by yourself. I would have thought that you would need a sales team and a marketing team to do those kind of numbers, but somehow you managed to pull it off. So fast forward, what did the next couple of months, couple of years look like for you?
Yeah, well, kind of jumping into the story of what happened to me in 2012, right? So, here we already are flipping, I've already bought a house, doing well for ourselves. And in November of 2012, I got a knock on my door, and I go to the door and check through the people, Michelle, my wife, and kids had already left to drop them off at preschool. And I have two little Yorkies that were barking, so I picked them up. So I have a little 4-pound Yorkies in my hand. So a big boy with some Yorkies, opening the door, checking through the people. I see a guy with the badge. And I open the door and I'm thinking, oh, we have a park across the street. And I think, oh, maybe some kids, maybe something happened in the park. And I go, hey, officer, morning. And he goes, Jesse Trujillo? And I was like, oh, he knows my name. And I was like, yes. And he goes, you got to come with me. And then I even thought, I was like, oh, why? What's going on? And he says, I can't tell you, it's a sealed indictment. And I was like, oh man, that's even worse. And I'm thinking in my head, wait a minute, I have a gated house. They're over my gate. Like they were at my door. So I was like, man, these kids, I didn't even put two and two together till that moment. So I asked him, hey, can I go put some pants on? Because, I was just over there with my dogs and my, just the early morning and stuff. So I'm going to go put my dogs, so I put my pants on, and then they took me in. Called my wife. I said, hey, call. The first person I thought of was calling a friend that I got in grade school with that was doing very well for himself as an attorney in San Diego and graduated top of his class in law school. And they called him up, and here I am in jail in San Diego, and just kind of not knowing even what I'm there for. It was like one of the darkest moments when you don't know what's going on, why, how long you're going to be there. It was like probably one of the darkest moments that I've ever gone through. And then we ended up finding out. He ended up getting a hold of me. He goes, hey, Jesse, do you know these two people's names? And I knew one of them. And 4 years before that, I had sold. So in 2008, I had sold two of our last properties right after the market was going down. I had two properties that we had on the market. Well, it was a lender that came to me and he said, Jesse, I got a client. He's looking to buy some rentals. I see you have those two. Can you give us a good price? Can you help us closing costs? I said, sure, man. I was like, you're doing me a favor, 100%. He goes, hey, I'm gonna be his property manager for him, and we're gonna rent these out. Can you help us rent them out so they're ready to go by the time we close? I was like, sure. I was a go-getter. I was like, man, thank you, no problem. So I ended up putting out ads. I rented them for them, put them in their name, and that was my downfall. What these guys were doing, they were buying properties with stolen identities in several markets in California. And what they were doing, they were buying these properties, renting them out, keeping the rents and not paying the mortgages and letting them foreclose. So what I didn't know, once all this happened years down the line, they came back and the DA, went to the DA's office, the mortgage company, obviously reported them. And so they went and they started investigating these things, and they went to the houses and they knocked on their doors and they said, well, hey, who rented these to you? Jesse Trujillo. So that's how I got involved in the whole situation, because I'm the one who had rented it to them. So they included me with these two other guys that were doing it to act like I was part of their, whole plan and stuff. So that's what would happen. I told obviously my attorney, hey man, this is like, maybe I told him the whole, like what happened. And he's like, man, I got duped. And he's like, Jesse, you don't worry, man. I got you. Like, you just keep working. We'll fight this. We'll prove your innocence. You're not going to go to jail. Don't worry about it. You just keep going. And I was like, all right. So that's what I did. I kept going. Thanksgiving Day in the morning, a year later, 2013, he calls me and he says, Jesse, I need you to come to my office right now. And I'm like, man, it's Thanksgiving. He says, I need you to come right now. I need to talk to you about what's going on. So I head over there, and he has a top office. You can see the view of San Diego. I'm sitting in his leather chair, and I'm sitting down. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, they want to bring in your partners. And I said, what do you mean my partners? He says, your cousins. When I had those 2 properties that I had sold, I had owned them together with 2 cousins of mine that are like my brothers. And he says, they want to include them in the case because they were on title with you when you sold them. And I was like, no. I mean, I had just gone through hell, right, for the last year. And I was like, no, I don't want, that's not. He goes, don't worry. Look, we could stop them from touching them, and I can still make sure you don't go to jail, but I need you to sign this plea right now. And so he had convinced me to sign a plea, and he says, don't worry, I'm still going to get you out of jail. You're not going to go to jail. You're not going to do any time, and don't worry about it. So I signed, and looking back at it, it's kind of crazy that I did, but that was the moment that I felt that was going off his guidance, right? His trust, and I did what he told me. And I ended up a couple months later in April 2014, we're there at the arraignment. We're talking about, I took, it was a bunch of my family there, not my kids, but had taken a bunch of my family to the arraignment because we were just happy to get it behind us, right? We just know it was going to be gone. It was going to be done. It's over. We were talking about where we're going to go have lunch after, we're all together, and we're there. And we get into the courtroom, and the judge is like looking at me. He's looking down at papers. He's looking at me. He's nodding his head. He's just like looking, and he goes, Mr. Trujillo, are you sure you want to do this? And then I looked over at my attorney, and my attorney nodded his head, and I said, yes, Your Honor. And he goes, man, and he looked again, and he goes, well, man, you signed it. Bailiff, take him away for 5 years. And at that moment, all the gasp, everyone was like, what just happened? Here the attorney was telling me we're going, not doing any jail time, maybe just get a slap on the wrist and it'll be done. Now he's sending me away for 5 years to state prison. And the reason we got to state prison was because the losses that the mortgages company had lost was over $500,000. So it became a bigger enhancement to send me to prison. And so here I am, man. I'm changing my suit and tie for a jumpsuit. A prison jumpsuit, and not knowing what just happened. My attorney's coming out crying close to my family and saying, I don't know what just happened. Things went wrong. And everyone's in shock. I mean, I didn't get to say goodbye to my wife. I didn't get to say goodbye to my kids. I hadn't even told my mom that's like my cheerleader in life. Like she didn't even know. Like we didn't plan on even telling her, right? No need to worry her because it was just, it's just sadly court stuff, and I was going to be out, and she would never even need to know. And I didn't say goodbye to anybody. I didn't put my business in place. I didn't have a chance to do anything. So here I'm sent away, going to these, maximum security prisons and stuff that it's just crazy that they would send me there, and with other people. And we started finding out like what just went wrong. And it started clicking. My attorney had already convinced me to sign over my company to him. My attorney had convinced me to sign over all our funds to him, because he said that was the correct thing to do, and that was him protecting us to do that. Well, we later found out that he hadn't even turned in anything to prove my innocence to the DA. Like there was nothing he was doing in the past, in that whole time. A couple months later, I get something in the mail from my wife, and it says he was on the news, he got arrested. So my attorney was in the news because they caught him. He was under investigation because he was money laundering for the Mexican mafia millions and millions of dollars during that whole time he was supposed to be working on my case. They ended up arresting him. I know he ended up going to 5 years in federal prison. That's all I know, after that. But it just showed he never was working on my case. As someone I trusted in his professionalism, supposed to be helping me out, and he didn't. And, when you're in there, I was like, man, it just beat me down again. I was like, what just happened? And we're trying to bring it up to other attorneys and to help me and stuff. And they're like, no, well, maybe, it just, no one really wanted to kind of help us out. We did get one attorney kind of helped us get our stuff back, but he didn't want to go any farther than that. So it was just one thing after another. A couple months down the line, I'm in prison. I'm up north in Northern California. I finally get my first visitor, and it's my sister. And she drives up there. It's like 6 hours away. She gets there. I see her walking in, and I just see tears in her eyes. And the tears in her eyes, and I said, what's going on? She says, Jesse, our mom has Lou Gehrig's disease, which is ALS, and it's taking her fast. And I knew when she said that, what she meant is like, you're not going to come out before she passes away. So man, I had to make a decision. It's like, how do I go see my mom? How do I see my mom before she passes away? We obviously had to tell her what was going on. And the fact that I couldn't be there for her was eating me alive, and I just had to make a decision. They had a program, it was called Fire Camp, and it's where prisoners can actually become a firefighter and actually go. They have different camps in different places in California. They had 2 camps in San Diego, which I thought that would be the closest place I can get there. If I can get there, my mom can come see me, And so, man, I got determined, and I pushed myself. And I know you look at me and you're like, dang, Jesse, you have the body of a firefighter already. Like there was, you would have gotten in super easy, but, believe it or not, I was a big boy, man. And I started working out. I started running 5 miles a day. Anytime, any open time, I was working out. And I can tell you, man, I know you got that nice 6-pack. I got like a little 1-pack, and I was proud of myself. I think I saw like 1 ab in there, and I was like, oh man, finally, And man, I got there. They took me. I ended up getting there after several months. Funny thing is that I got there, but they actually took me as a cook last minute. So, hey, I got there. It didn't matter.
Yeah, you didn't volunteer for that either. That's funny.
I'll take it, and I got there, And I got there, and I ended up going to one in San Diego, and I got to see my mom 3 times. By the time I saw her, sadly, she was already on a feeding tube, and she couldn't speak anymore. I saw her about 3 times, and she passed away in 2015. Man, I could tell you things were crumbling down, and I was just beaten up, and I just had to say, I got to get my mind off things. And I was getting close. They were actually going to officially getting close to releasing me in 2 years instead of 5 because they were able to cut time down. And so I just said, I gotta put my mind straight. So I started asking like my wife, send me all the documents for the court. I'm like, what went wrong? Ended up going through thousands of papers. I found one paper that no one had ever showed me. And it was the calculation that the mortgage company had sent the DA of their losses. Well, what I ended up finding out is that it was completely wrong. It was a miscalculation. No one had calculated in there that they had resold these properties and their losses were less. So I ended up finding out that this paper had actually proven that I was wrongfully in prison at all. I shouldn't have been sent to prison.
Like even if you were in the loop with those guys that were buying properties with stolen identities, and even if that were the case, the penalty shouldn't have been over $500,000 because they resold the properties and they were miscalculated. Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
So man, like I want to pause again because this part, it's you're talking about it in 5 minutes, but this was 2 years for you. What did you tell yourself when you're there? Like, how do you keep your head above ground? Because a lot of people just get in a spiral and like they never make it out from something like that. And then I can't tell you how many times, I hear stories of people that life hits them really hard one time and then they just never get up. And maybe like if you're listening to this, you might be there where life has just punched you right in the fucking nose, right? And you're having a hard time getting up and you're wondering, this is why I love your story so much, is like you didn't know what was going on. You didn't do anything wrong. Like you got dealt the worst hand possible. Like what are the chances that you hire an attorney that's a friend from, growing up and he ends up being corrupt and going to jail, right? And so I'm thinking like, man, like if I'm in this scenario, I'm thinking life is just unfair. Somebody has it out to get me. You know what I mean? It's just like, and maybe you're listening to this and you're in that spot where you think that life is just beating you down. What do you do to keep your head thinking positively, right? You like be there for your family, be there for yourself to get out of that scenario.
I wish I had like an easy answer. It was up and down, Trust me, I had days, nights just crying all night. There was nights there I was like, no, Jesse, stop. All right, you done crying? All right, now time to go to work, right? Like you had to get in your head. I'm not a guru of mental health, but I could tell you that in there, it was a fight with myself. And you got to push yourself. I knew that if I let myself, I was going to go into depression. I was going to go into just a very dark place. I was going to want to give up. And knowing that, I had to keep telling myself every day, almost every minute that I was probably awake. There was times I didn't want to wake up, but right there there's no choice. You got to wake up. And, honestly, I went through riots. I went through things that I look back now and I'm like, I can't even believe that I went through. You're there fighting sometimes for your life, believe it or not. So you got to get mentally you can give up, or you could push yourself and say, I am not going to end like this. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let everything that just happened to me, stop me from what I wanted to do in life. Not only for me, for myself, for my kids, for my wife. Like I just told myself, I am not going to give up here, and I'm not going to let that happen. So I don't know if that's an easy answer, but it's just, I had to push myself. That's all. That's really all I did.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you were able to push yourself enough to start looking at some documents. You started combing through everything. You found out that the actual losses were under $500,000. What happens next?
So I thought I had a smoking gun, right? So then here we are going to attorneys, and all the attorneys we were taking to, they said, by the time we fight this and take this to court, you're already going to be out. So they weren't really pushing us to go and do it. So it was kind of like, man, another thing. So I could tell you by then, I was getting close to being let out. It was going to be 2 years. And I had just dealt with, obviously, that lender and person that I got duped with. The attorney that, pretty much frauded me. I had just found this now that this mortgage company because of their mistake, ended up coming to prison. And I just lost my mom. And I can tell you, man, like, it was February and they finally let me out. And I came out, man, with the hunger. And I was like, it was just overcoming. And I just wanted that hunger for a carne asada burrito. And I came out, buddy, and I just haven't stopped. I've been eating carne asada burritos since then. And, no, I'm just kidding. But, well, not kidding, but, it did happen. But no, man, I came back with a vengeance. I came out of there with the vengeance. And I can tell you, I pretty much just came out and I heard something. I listened to motivational things, right? I need something to keep me going. And I remember I heard a quote. And it was a quote from Frank Sinatra. And it says, "The best revenge is massive success." And I remember I heard that, right? And because I knew that revenge in my head, even though I was mad at the world, is not good for the heart, it's not good for the soul. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, I can run with that one. Let's run with that one, I told myself. And I could tell you, man, I pushed and I used that, and I just kept going. And I went back I literally kissed my wife, hugged the kids, and back to work. And I went all in. And I worked, man. I want to say I worked for like 5 years. And at one point in 2021, I kind of took a step back and I looked back. And I had already got us went from, we were broke. We came out and there was nothing. Like, I had literally nothing. We still had the house because luckily we negotiated something with the lender, but that's all we had left. And I went from $0 to $15 million net worth within those 5 years because I pushed myself to that limit.
Man, dude, I love that. So let's talk. Now we can talk about the you said 0 to 15 million in 5 years, right? Starting from nothing. So you just went straight to work. Now, did at any point, was there oh man, I don't know if I could do this, if I'm going to go back you had to be scared that something could happen again. How did you push through all of that?
Oh, I was scared all the time. If you think about it, it's dealing. It made it 10 times harder for me to get things done because of what I just went through, my record, everything that I came out with. I talk about determination, and there's a saying that I say, and it's, determination doesn't ask for permission. If you hear that, it doesn't ask for permission. I didn't ask for permission to go see my mom. I didn't ask for permission to get my company back on top and get my family back up to where they didn't have to worry about money again. I didn't ask for permission. I just did it. And so when you're determined, man, when you're committed to your goals, you become unstoppable. And I feel like that's what I did. I didn't let anyone tell me no. There was no such, I didn't ask anyone if I could do it. I just said, I'm going to do it, and I did it. So it's just pushing your mind frame to that, knowing that nothing can stop you, and whatever bumps in the roads happen, it is what it is. On to the next, on to the next, on to the next, till you get things done.
So I really want to dive into what happened over those 5 years. But before we do that, can you tell us about where you're at now? Maybe any recent updates with your past case, because I know there have been some recent updates, right? I know you sent me a picture. And then what you're doing to help people that are in similar situations.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you a quick story. So it was a Sunday dinner. My aunt, which is like my second mom, my tia, and she invited us over for dinner, and we were there and we had dinner, and it was me and my family, my cousins and stuff, my kids, everyone. And then after, she says, Jesse, hey, I want to show you this movie. I just saw it, and I think you should watch it. And I was like, oh, what is it? And she's like, oh, well, let's sit down. And so we all sat down, and it was me, my aunt, and my uncle. We stayed at the table behind, and we're watching the movie. And it was called A Million Miles Away. And it's on Prime Video, and it's about Jose Hernandez. He's the first migrant worker to become an astronaut. And what the story is, man, this guy tried and tried and tried. And he applied to be an astronaut 11 times, and he got denied. On the 12th time, he applied again, and he got in, and he became an astronaut. So he never gave up. And I just remember my aunt looking over at that moment when that happened in the movie. She looked over at me, and she looked at me in the eyes, and she says, "Jesse, you're our family's astronaut." And I was like, oh man, like that was such an impactful thing that she told me. And I realized then that, like, man, I had done something that most people don't do, right? I didn't give up. And the reason why the 11 times that he tried is so important, because after 11 years, if you remember that letter that I told you I found from the mortgage company, I didn't give up. I was still in my head. I was like, man, I know that I shouldn't have been imprisoned. And even though I fought it with many attorneys and nobody, or people would turn me down or just try to get me for money, I tried again. And in actually of March of 2023, last year, I fought it again with an attorney, and we went to court and we won. We finally, after 11 years, we won. We proved, the judge sided with us and told the DA, how dare you guys? And we won. And so we're still kind of in the middle of it now, exonerating, hopefully, my name completely. But I proved that I was wrongfully imprisoned. That was a great start, for not giving up, right? So that's kind of the story. You were talking about giving back. We're doing well. We're still flipping houses. We're buying apartments. We're doing a lot of things. But now there's little other things I want to do in life, and I want to give back. When I was in prison, I got to meet some people that maybe shouldn't have been there, right? There's some people that should have, and there's some people that shouldn't have. And things go wrong. And I want to help those people. And so I've actually partnered up with, it's called the Innocent Center. And we've actually just donated our office to them, and we're helping them out. And my goal is to, work hard and help them as much as I can to help free as many people as we can that shouldn't be in there.
Man, so good. So another thing too is, you can't really think about helping people until you make something for yourself, right? When you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about helping other people that need the help. And so what I love is there's so many people out there that they just say, man, things should be different. Maybe at the most they'll go into like a march and protest that life should be different than it is. But what I love about your story is you realize that there's a flaw in our system, right? And you realize that there's people that they have their freedom being taken away from them. And you didn't just go and complain and go on the news and, write an article and post it on Instagram or Facebook. No, you built a multi-million-dollar empire, built an office and donated your office. And now you're actually giving back one of the most powerful tools, which is you're telling your story, right? And you've got millions of dollars behind you. Just being able to amplify the story, donating resources, you're donating things that will make a difference. So, man, I love that, dude. Thanks again for telling your story. Every time I hear it, it gives me a chill. It chokes me up a little bit. And one of my favorite things, the first time Jesse told this story was at an event. And if you guys don't know Jesse personally, you're listening to this for the first time. He really is like this. He's like, if you're in that scenario where you want to quit, reach out to me. And Jesse has a huge heart. He's out there helping people. So if that is you and you're listening to this and you feel like, you're at your rock bottom or you're struggling and you want to quit, look at what tenacity can do for you. Jesse has a huge, I can see him right now. He's probably overlooking the ocean right now in his office. He's got a multi-million-dollar business. He's got apartments. He's raising money. He's got 40 employees that work for him with a C-level suite. I mean, it's really incredible what you can do. And most people would quit, right? I don't know very many people that wouldn't quit. And honestly, rightfully so. If all of that happens to you, I can't imagine going, I'm going to get back into flipping and I'm going to build an empire. But, he created the success and now he's giving back. So, man, thanks again for telling the story. Now, let's dive in. This is what I'm also interested about. 0 to 15 million in net worth in 5 years, right? So walk me through that first year. You have, I'm sure, terrible credit. You've probably had to give up some of the properties that you own. So you may be some foreclosures. I don't know. You can tell me. And I don't know what it's like getting lending when you have that sort of thing on your record. Like, can lenders see that you've dealt with that in the past or that you were in jail? Are they looking at that as well?
Some are and some aren't. And,
Okay.
I was upfront with a lot of people just of what I went through. Yeah, I kind of had to make a decision, like, do I share this? Do I not? And I just figured, man, I'm just going to be upfront. And so a lot of my investors, even investors from before, like, they were waiting for me to come out. Like, they still trusted me even after I was, like, I had some investors go visit me in prison. It's crazy. Like, I look back and I'm so appreciative of them that they still believed in me, even though what I was going through, And so, when I came out, like, yes, I was broke. Everything that could go wrong was wrong. But see, you can't take no for an answer. So for me, I kept looking for lenders. I kept telling them, man, I know how to do this. You got to go. Number one, I would go find deals, right? I needed to go find deals. And that doesn't have nothing to do with my history, right? I'm talking to agents. I'm talking to wholesalers. I'm talking to everyone I could. And then I was talking to lenders and letting them know that what I had done in the past and what I can do. And then, there's some lenders that told me no, and then there's a couple lenders that told me yes, and that's all I needed, because they're based on not my credit, they're based on the actual property, right? So as long as I'm buying right on these properties, then they'll take a chance on you. So luckily I had a couple of lenders that gave me a shot that first year, that when I came back, and they gave me a shot again. And as long as you prove that you keep to your word, then your relationship keeps growing with them. So, I think that's so important. Like, sometimes people forget, right, of keeping your word, how important that is. Like, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And I think that's what I did. And the moment I started doing that, just the lenders kept opening their books to me. So after that, it was just like, dang, Jesse, you're selling these properties fast. You're doing what you promised. You're paying us back. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? So that's what allowed me to get back to where I was. We went back from 0 properties to about 80 flips a year in San Diego within 2 years. And it wasn't easy. And you know how hard San Diego market is. It was a very hard thing to do. Sometimes when you're at the bottom and the only way is up, shoot, man, that just pushes you to another level to get there. And we got to that point. I think it was just being so upfront. I'm not making myself like Mr. Perfect over here, but I think just honesty and keeping your word is so huge with your investors and lenders. And I think that, even with your contractors, right? With the crews, I paid them on time. I didn't gyp them. Like, if they did the work, I paid them first, right? It's like putting priorities and being appreciative of everyone and trying to help you out. I wouldn't be where I'm at without my investors, without the lenders, without the contractors, without my team. Like, little by little, John, we go back and he's like, what changed when I came back is I had a different mind frame. Remember, I used to do everything by myself. When I came back in 2016, I hired my first admin assistant. I started delegating, and that opened up the world. That's how I got to 15 million in 5 years, because I started delegating and building a team. And so everything I knew, and I was like, it wasn't productive for me to be in that time, using my time and, in that space, I would pass it on. And so by the time we knew, we started building a team. And it's because of that team that we got to the 80 flips a year. It's because of the team that now we're doing close to 200 flips a year right now. So it's learning about growth and learning about scaling your team with the right people in the right seats.
And how many years was it of actual, when you're in the business before you made your first hire?
It was 2016. Literally that first year I came back is when I hired the first person.
And you had done business prior for 4 or 5 years, but all by yourself, right?
Yeah. I had a cousin that worked for me together, so it was just like maybe 2 or 3 of us with my wife and stuff. But not like employees. I was trying to avoid having employees. That wasn't. I thought, I have I have to make payroll. That wasn't exciting to me. And then I was like, the moment I saw what happens when you hire someone that actually knows what they're doing in their space and just opens up your time. Time is the one thing we can't get back, right? It's the most valuable thing that we have. So knowing that someone helps you with your time, what's the cost on that? It's priceless.
So your first hire as an admin, what is your, if you can recall, because this was a while ago, what was your second hire?
Well, it was like admin, then I pushed someone into acquisitions, and then I pushed someone for project management.
Okay.
So I kind of went that route there, and then little by little, then, you kind of grow into different things, like, a little bit more admin, because now we got more deals, and now we got more acquisitions people. So it just kind of grew little by little onto that side.
And how do you decide like, this is who I'm going to hire? Because at the time, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you weren't in a bunch of masterminds and a bunch of training and things like that. I mean, you kind of were just figuring it out by yourself, right? And you'll hear me say on this podcast that education is definitely the shortcut, right? Like, education's the shortcut. Now, there's no like cheat code where you go and you pay for this education and then you get rich quick. Like that doesn't exist, right? Where you don't have to work. Like, anybody that's telling you that you don't have to work is selling you some bullshit, because let me know if I'm wrong, but I don't know of anything where you can get rich without working, right? Yep. And so how did you go about, you don't have any guidance, like training these people and offloading stuff when right at the beginning, when you're used to doing everything?
So, I was a trainer, right? I was the one who was training. I was training them to do everything. So did I hire correctly? I don't know. The old saying, right? What gets you here might not get you there, right? And in those moments, we did enough. Like, I learned from hiring back then, some hires were good, some hires weren't that great, but it was definitely a learning lesson when you train someone and then all of a sudden they leave. Trust me, it's not fun, but it's just putting that time and effort, doing as much due diligence as I knew back then on them, and seeing what, if they fit the culture of what I'm looking to do. And then, but it's like they say, hire slow and fire fast. That's such an important thing. It's a simple saying, but it's so important. Like, if they're not in your culture and they're not ready to work with the way you want to work together, no harm, no foul. It's better everyone goes their own way.
That's been repeated on this podcast. You're the third person that said that. The first person that came on, Matt Ryder, he's the CEO of a company that's doing a couple million a month. They've done over 75 million. And that was his biggest advice for CEOs, is speed to fire. Right? If somebody's not the right fit, you're doing both them and yourself a disjustice by keeping them on the team. So I love that you brought that up. Now, if you had to pick one lever, it doesn't work like this. Life isn't like, oh, I hired a CEO and then on my life, now I'm just in Tahiti, having drinks on the beach all the time. Obviously that doesn't exist, but what would you say is one of the biggest levers that you pulled where you're like, wow, now I really have some time to grow this business? Like, what point was that for you?
I think it's bringing in a COO for me at that point, when we're at that level. I think someone who really, your strengths, your weaknesses, right? And acknowledging them and knowing to bring in someone to help you with those weaknesses, if you want to call them, or things that maybe you shouldn't be doing in the position you're in. I think that's a game changer when someone can do some of those things, because you end up loving the business more when you get to do things that you really love and are money producing for the company. So yeah. I think that was my game changer. Just that mental aha to know that they're out there. There are people out there that can complement you and help you do things in the business that maybe you don't have time for or don't even like to do.
So what you see a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, though, is they think they're good at everything, right? we know people like that are like, I'm shit. Sometimes I'm like that too, right? It's like, oh no, I'm great at everything. So how did you know what you're bad at, right? How did you know what you're like, okay, this is the thing that I need to hire out the most?
Yeah, I'm horrible at accountability sometimes, I know it. Like, there's like me running the teams, I might tell them, but I might not go back and check, you know what I mean? And that's not good, right? I need someone that's on there and making sure, double checking, triple checking on things, because I'm moving so fast sometimes that I trust the team. Not that's nothing wrong with trusting the team, but it's just that I just trust them and I go. And I'm already going to the next thing where I need someone, hey, well, just make sure this is still running the way it's supposed to be running. So I think that for me has been my biggest welcoming to my COO coming in here and just holding people accountable of what I want done and making sure that it's getting done, not just, on a one-time set, that it's being checked, that it's getting done all the way to the end.
And they're also that COO he's also keeping directors accountable, right? So I'm sure you have a sales manager on maybe a regional level. Can you tell me about what is your team? Walk me through what your team looks like now. Obviously, you don't have to tell me all 40 employees, but like on a rough scale, what's the business model look like on the flipping side?
Yeah, so we have a national sales manager, we have a national project manager, we have pretty much kind of a head of admin and just pretty much a finance department and HR together. And really and then now we've actually started it's what we call it's AJX Capital, which is our money raising, apartments, and asset management. So kind of those, we have like 5 heads right now on the top.
Now, does the sales manager also do marketing?
They work with our marketers, our marketing.
Okay.
If you want, our marketing department that we have.
Yeah, 'cause one of the things that we didn't even bring up is you did 80 to 100 flips in 1 year without any marketing, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So most people listening to this will call bullshit, but it's true, and it's very hard to replicate. I've even tried it. The first time I heard Jesse's video when I was watching 7-figure flipping, I was like, "That's it. No marketing. I'm gonna go do Jesse did." It's very difficult. So, how do you think you're able to pull that off? And you're still doing a lot of deals without marketing, right? Like you're doing marketing now, but you still do a lot without marketing. So walk us through that, man. What are some of the keys to success there?
I call it the networking side, right? We have our wholesaling department that does marketing, and then we have our fix and flip that I call it networking. It's all about relationships. The relationships doesn't cost you anything. I mean, it costs you time and your phone, right? Or maybe a coffee. But what it is, I mean, the way I built that side of it is just, you got to think who's going to help you out. Investors, lenders, real estate agents, and wholesalers. I mean, I'm not marketing to them at all. I'm literally calling them and meeting with them, speaking to them, and that's all it is. That's how we grew to 80 flips a year with no marketing, because it was literally just me and, some of my team members, and we're going out there and just talking to people, meeting with people, and that's all it took. And they would give us a chance, and then they'd be sending us deals. And so we'd have deal flow coming to us just from our relationships that we kept building and got to that point where literally we didn't have to do any marketing. Like, honestly, we didn't even have, I think, a website at that point. Like, it was just people just knowing that we were there, and it was just word of mouth, right? Where people heard, oh, AJX, yeah, and our reputation is strong. So they just that they knew that we would close, we'd keep our word out, and it's kind of like our track record showed everything, right? Yeah. I mean, the amount of properties we were buying, that we were closing them, we had no foreclosure, we paid all our investors on time. I mean, that track record was priceless. And that in building your track record, I think is so huge. So that is something I would recommend. Start somewhere. I had to start with 0, go with
So
1.
what did you do specifically, right? When you didn't have any properties, you couldn't show them proof of funds but you had to just go meet with these real estate agents. I mean, a lot of people, that's one of the hardest parts, right? Is going from 0 to 1 when you're going to meet with real estate agents and you really don't know what you're talking about, maybe at the beginning. So what did you do? Did you just go sit down and have coffee with them? How did you sell yourself for them to start sending you deals?
Yeah. I mean, with the agents, you're meeting them at the property, you're talking to them, maybe going to coffee. I think a lot of the times it was really more going to the properties and then meeting you up front and seeing that you were like, you're actually taking the time to check this property out. I mean, I think they appreciate that. That actually meant a lot to them. That was really the game changer. I wish there was more of a secret sauce or, some secret that I had, but it's just going out there, meeting with them, being upfront and genuine, because trust me, I've had many of them tell me like, oh man, I've had guys come here and I know they're being sleazy salespeople and lying to me just to get in the deal. And I always tell people, like, a lot of the agents, we'd go out there and we tell them, like, here's our offer. Like, we can close it, but if you get a higher offer, we understand, keep us as a backup. And I think they respected me for that, because I didn't lie to them and try to give them a false number and then go back and try to renegotiate, and waste their time and lie to them. So I think there was times I missed deals, but then there was times that they would come back like, oh, I should have taken your deal from the first time. Next time, Jesse, I'm just going to go with you. You know what I mean? So it opens up that relationship where, that one agent might bring you a deal a month. I mean, that's, 12 deals, imagine if you have a bunch of agents or wholesalers that you don't burn your bridges. Like that's one of the biggest thing in this type of business. Don't burn your bridges. Everybody knows each other. But you should want to just be upfront, and it's sadly not everyone's like that, but I just say that everyone's starting out, just be upfront. You're going to get no's, but just wait till you get that one yes, and that yes, they're going to help you out. And then you're going to get more yeses. And once you build that reputation, trust me, sky's the limit after that.
I love it. And just keep that perseverance, man. That's like, if you're listening to this and there's anything you take away, that perseverance of just being able to push through. I mean, you make it sound kind of easy. It's just, oh, well, yeah, we did this and then we did 20 flips in a year. Like, that alone is a feat. And there was a lot of no's that you went through there. And there's got to be other bumps and hurdles, right? That from 2015 to 2021. And even recently, right, when the market, I know you and I were talking, even this last kind of market when it slowed down wasn't easy for anybody in the business. Like everybody that I talk to that's in the business now, they struggle with that. So, man, this has been incredible. I love your story. Thank you again for being able to come and share it. If people want to, they want to back you, right? They want to get behind you. They want to invest with you. They want to be a part of what you're building, because I've told multiple people this. If there's anybody that I believe is going to go to the moon, it's you, right? As far as you want to go, you're going to keep going. For people that want to be a part of that, how do they learn more about joining your team, investing with you, everything like that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, so we started a website called investwithjesse.com. Again, investwithjesse.com. And pretty much you go on there, we have options there to get invest with us right away on what we're doing. Or two, you go on there and set up a Calendly link. You know, you click on the Calendly link, set up a meeting with me, a Zoom, 15 minutes with me and my team. We'd love to talk to you. You know, and it doesn't have to be, it's one, if you'd like to invest with us, you have an apartment for us, if you have a flip for us. But man, if you're going through something, and John knows, like, man, if you're going through something, you'd love to talk and just have a quick little 15-minute talk if I can help you out, just to help you push through, and set up a time with me. I'll make that time for you.
I love that. There's so many people that say that and they're full of shit, but Jesse really will. He answers the phone every time I call him or he calls me back, and he's incredibly busy running a big business. So, man, dude, this has been awesome. Thanks again for coming on. Is there anything else you want to tell kind of the audience, people that are listening to your story?
It's going to sound easier said than done, but I promise when you're in that middle of it, like, you just got to tell yourself to never give up. That's it. Just never give up. Tell yourself, no, I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to keep pushing forward. And if you tell yourself, you'll manifest it and you'll get it done.
I love it. This is Jesse Trujillo. This is the Zeroed In Podcast, signing off. Thanks, Jesse.